How you know GKE is a managed Kubernetes control plane. It used to be free when you used a single zone. You can use a standard GKE cluster which manages instance groups for you, or you can use GKE Autopilot, which is serverless cluster. Meaning when you create a pod, GKE will create a dedicated node specifically for that pod. If you just compare prices of computer resources, the difference can be significant, but in a typical Kubernetes cluster there is a lot of waste, so Autopilot can actually help reduce that. However, it will generally still be more expensive than standard GKE. I would say if you have only a few applications, you might want to try GKE Autopilot. But if you're dealing with a large Kubernetes clusters of 200 or even 300 nodes, you almost always want to go with a standard cluster because it will be much cheaper. In this one, we'll only need to create GKE cluster and the node group. Now, let's go to versus code. To GKE Terraform file. First, let's give it a name in real environments. Next, we can make this cluster either regional where the control plane and nodes are spread across multiple zones, or zonal. Keep in mind GCP charges for data transfer and if you deploy your nodes in different zones. When creating a GKE cluster, it will automatically provision a default instance group, which we don't need since we'll manage our nodes ourselves. We need to attach this cluster to the VPC we created using our private subnet with a NAND gateway and secondary IP ranges for ports and services. If you have Kafka in one zone and applications in another with heavy read-write operations, GKE has something similar to AWS Load Balancer Controller, allowing you to create application load balancer to expose your services. We need to set up workload identity to grant permissions to individual pods, which we'll use later with Secret Manager. I'll cover fully private GKE clusters in the VPN section, but for now let's use private nodes. This means nodes will only get private IP addresses. Next, let's create instance group. This service account is used to grant access to internal GCP services for writing metrics and logs. You can also use it as a secondary filter when setting up a firewall. GKE enables metrics and logs by default, but you might want to explicitly disable them if you're using your own monitoring system like Prometheus or if you're not using GCP logging service. Now let's apply Terraform. Creating a GKE cluster might take up to 12 minutes, so be patient. Alright, we have the cluster. Let's explore what we have in the GCP console. Search for GKE or Kubernetes. Here our demo cluster. To connect, just copy command from the console. Let's try to run it. If this is your first time, you will see an error. We just need to install auth kubectl plugin. Use the link from the error message to install it. I did it before. Then let's try connecting to the cluster one more time. To verify access quickly, we can get default Kubernetes service. We can also get nodes with the original cluster. You might get one node per zone, so you can have 3 nodes instead of 1. And the second is the object type like pod, deployment, role, etc. And finally, I destroy GKE Cluster.